Welcome back to She Commerce, where power women and real talk collide in the world of commerce. We're recording live from Cannes with our Cannes Confidential series. We're talking AI, retail media, commerce, consumer behavior, all the things that are dominating every conversation here this week.
And today's episode, it's a big one because we're joined by two powerhouse women leading from the very front lines of global commerce. Liz Buchanan, President of North America, and Emilie Darolles, President of Western Europe.
You really sound legit.
I know, right? At the accent.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Perfect. Well done.
Between Liz and Emily, you're shaping how brands, retailers, and organizations think about growth, consumers, and the future of commerce across two incredibly dynamic regions.
Liz leads North America, one of the most complex and fast-moving markets in the world, and she's built her career across customer success, sales, analytics, product development, and technology. So she's not just responding to where the market is going, she's helping define it.
Yes. And Emily brings that same powerhouse energy across Western Europe with more than 2 decades of experience in consumer intelligence, market research, and global client leadership. She leads with both strategic vision and the kind of local market understanding that modern commerce demands.
So today, we're digging into leadership, transformation, consumer behavior, and what it takes to stay commercially sharp in a world that's changing by the minute.
And because this is She Commerce, we're also talking about the women behind the titles, how they lead, how they navigate complexity, and what you're seeing that the rest of us need to be paying attention to.
Liz, Emily,
welcome to She Commerce.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having us.
Happy
We're
to be
super
here.
excited.
We're thrilled to have you here.
Alrighty, let's start with the commerce revolution. If you had to describe the state of commerce in one sentence today, what would it be? And let me start that question, interestingly enough, with you, Emily, because you're president of a really diverse region. I'd love to hear what that looks like.
I would say in one word, probably revolution. So I had the opportunity to live in Asia. So I've experienced actually the East commerce versus the West and how those two trends are colliding. And the models are greatly different, right? So in Asia, it started with, quick commerce, social commerce, influence, content creation, and the entire ecosystem up to, checkout, all in one app connected with the consumer at the center. I think in Europe, the model has been slightly different. We see obviously the growing importance of retail media, but the distribution has been very much structured around the channels. And what I think, and the trend that we'll see growing in Europe is what we've seen in Asia with the channels blurring and really the consumer being at the center of that ecosystem. And technology will be, and AI in particular, will be an enabler of that with agentic commerce. So one nuance is though versus the US, I do think Europe is not moving at the same pace as the US in terms of AI, mostly because of the regulatory environment that we have in Europe and the protection.
So diverse as well.
So very, very diverse, but the trend is very much the same and the train is moving at pace. So I'm sure Europe will catch up.
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah.
And what do you say to that, Liz, for North America?
It might just be because I'm here at Cannes and it has felt, if for anyone who's been here, it's very lively. There's a ton going on. And the word that kind of comes to mind, we were talking about this morning, is it's a little chaotic and in a good way.
Chaotic.
In a good way. And it feels like a really apt description too for the US retail environment at the moment. You have these two sort of ends of the spectrum and one being very tech forward, very AI focused experimentation, some of the largest retailers leading that charge. And then you have a kind of middle and long tail of retail that are really trying to figure out how to stay competitive.
Yeah.
And so the environment is very fluid, very dynamic, and a little bit uncomfortably chaotic at times, but I think we'll talk more about how it's coming together.
So, what would you say that the biggest shift that you've seen so far globally, that most execs still underestimate?
I can start, or
Yeah,
unless you
sure.
want to. Go ahead.
Okay. I would say around the evolution of distribution and channels, the way we're thinking about channels and the fact that now the consumer journey is very, very different. They don't think in terms of channels. They're thinking about, influence, product they want to buy through the app, social media. So the old world is kind of, changing at a very rapid pace. And I think the marketeers that will succeed will be the ones starting from the consumer and how the data actually is informing how the consumer is navigating the new worlds. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts we're seeing currently.
Emily said it very, very well. I would agree with everything that she said. I think the data piece at the end, we'll talk about more when we talk about AI in particular, but there is still a little bit of, I think, under planning and underestimation around just how important getting the data right is going to be in this new world.
Absolutely.
And how critical that is to actually understanding the consumer.
Under planning. I think that's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to CEOs, CMOs, retailers today, what's something that's keeping them up at night, or maybe should be keeping them up at night?
I think one of the biggest themes here, and probably just in conversations with customers over the last couple of months, has been a fear of getting behind in the AI space.
Yeah.
And also a desire to, as a result, move quite quickly, but doing that in a way that is sort of no regrets.
Yeah.
So you don't invest in a way that you're, going to be left later with technical debt or, a bunch of failed experiments that you can't sort of pick up and learn from. And the level of experimentation happening right now is enormous. And so it feels like finding that right balance is something that I'm hearing from every leader at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think ultimately it's about, growing, expanding the business, and marketeers, CMOs, CEOs have difficult choices to make in terms of budget allocation.
They do.
And the question is more and more at Cannes, I've been in, several conversations. What is the output? How do you make sure you've got the right, ROI? So I think that question of how we, consumers and our clients are experimenting, testing, trying new things with AI, but very quickly it's going to be about the outcome and whether, every dollar I'm spending is actually generating the right growth for my business. And I think that's really the biggest topic nowadays is how do you make sure that you allocate your spends in the most productive way.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of conversations about getting your house in order and investing there first before investing in the shiny things and all the pilots, because they're not obviously going to pay out unless you have that correct first. So it feels like that's a good place to start if you don't have that worked out.
Yeah.
You already said AI. We've probably said it 10 times this conversation already. You can't avoid it here in Cannes. So let's dig in there.
Sure.
How is AI actually changing consumer intelligence and behavior?
I think the biggest thing, and it's been said a couple of times in different, panel discussions and forums here, is that it's really collapsing the funnel. The path to purchase is not linear. And though it hasn't, always been linear, it was a bit more predictable.
Yep.
And now discovery is happening in so many places. The path to conversion can be as easy as a click. And I am very guilty of that on a platform like TikTok, where I see somebody trying something and I just hit the buy now button, right? And so the collapse to me, it's the collapse of the funnel that I think is the biggest change for everybody.
I totally agree. And I think the biggest questions for marketeers is how we're going to influence agentic commerce and all these, algorithms, and because the choice is going to be made very differently. So how do you ensure that you have brand visibility in the same way that, in the shelf, historically, you were fighting for just more shelf space. Now it's going to be how do you make sure you're in that ecosystem and that the algorithm are giving your brands enough share of voice.
Just to build on that, Emily, what is one thing that you would say is different now than it was 2 years ago? Something that marketers maybe can influence or do differently now that they couldn't even think of 2 years ago?
Yeah, I would say the place of agentic commerce and really how to navigate and make sure that the brand's visibility is there. I think that's accelerating very rapidly. We're already seeing a change also in the, even in traditional like brick and mortar, we see the challenger brands growing exponentially. So I think it's going to be about for the big brands, how to reinvent themselves through those channels and how do you make sure that they work on, content creation. Like it's really a new world.
Yeah.
And being able to refocus on what the brand stands for and how those values actually connect with the consumer's needs and expectation is going to be critical.
Yeah, by channel, right? By location, all that, like very relevant. The relevance is important too. How do you stay relevant in those other channels as well?
Exactly.
Why are our podcasts so short? Because
I
honestly,
You
I
just keep
could ask
going.
these questions. I have so many questions that I could ask you about AI and all of that connectivity and, agentic AI and, talking to each other. But what I am going to do is I'm going to try to control
Focus.
myself.
Focus.
Focus. And then ask you, how do you think that AI is sort of reshaping the decision making within the org?
Yeah. I think there are a number of applications for AI, right, across any organization. We expect it to drive massive efficiencies. We expect it to be a growth engine. We expect it to transform the way that certain business processes, get done. And if you think about trying to accomplish all of that at once and in parallel,
No pressure.
it's quite daunting, right? It's quite daunting. And so I think one of the big topics that we're certainly talking about within our organization, our customers are all talking about is how do you prioritize?
Yeah.
What are the biggest things to focus on that are going to make the most incremental impact to your organization? And Emily made a great comment at the beginning about customer and consumer and shopper centricity. And I think if you stay rooted in that, you'll make better decisions, right? With all of this pressure to move quickly and again, have those sort of no regrets decisions that you make.
That is so true. I mean, it is so easy to get swept up in the mania almost, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, it's all new and shiny. You always want what's on trend.
Yep.
But before you do that, it's so important, to your point, to get your house in order.
Data sexy again. We're making data sexy again. We're bringing it back.
We like that.
Yes, and we've been using that.
We're bringing
AI and models
to data. Other data.
They do. That's exactly right. And as Emily was just saying, AI is fueled by strong data. And if you don't have the strong data, you really can get inaccurate results. That's extremely real. We see it within our customers' organizations who don't have strong data governance. And who, for example, you might be running 3 different experimentations as a customer across different parts of your organization using the same underlying data lake, and you get different results. To the same question, because you really have to start thinking about, if you haven't already, how are you going to govern the data? What are the rules effectively around what data is in, what data is out? And when we are talking with clients right now and are asked sort of what should we be focused on, especially for brands, certainly for retailers as well, it's really the content itself and making sure that you have strong underlying content about your brands that you can use to fuel that.
It's architecture, right?
That's right.
You would not build a house one brick at a time without a plan against it, right?
Exactly.
And that you need those architects' plans first. Plan it out.
Well, and you need a vision. What are you building?
Yeah.
And then how do you measure that success? If you're trying to build a palace and you build a shack, right? You did something wrong
and
along
what do you
the way.
need it to deliver?
Yeah,
I mean,
right. And what is the outcome?
Trying to achieve?
And then how do you measure against that outcome to know if it was successful or not? And which includes data as well.
That's right.
So would you say that AI would help make companies work faster?
I think it certainly can.
Or smarter.
I think it's both.
I agree.
I do. I think it's both.
So it's all about the planning, right?
But do you think more companies are using it to be smarter or faster? currently?
I really think both. I think AI will be like a human power augmentation. So really enabling both speed and new capabilities. But to Liz's point, I think governance, like around the data and is going to be critically important.
Yeah.
But to me, it's both actually.
I agree. Even if we just think about our own experience, we've adopted a number of the different capabilities in how internally, and things that used to take us hours and days take us minutes now,
Clicks.
right? And so there's speed, but because you can iterate more quickly, you also get to better answers.
Right.
So I really do think it's both.
Yeah. From a European perspective, are there differences in how organizations are adopting AI and leveraging it versus like the North America perspective? Do you guys
I would
see that?
say, as we said earlier, right? I think it's mostly around the data protection and data. So, the protective or the regulatory aspects that we have in Europe. But apart from that, no, I think the trend is somewhat very, similar. I think the US is at present moving at pace and a lot, faster than Europe is. Europe is in the testing mode, and many of our clients are experimenting, by keeping in mind those guardrails and on the environment that we live in.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've heard said a few times here at Cannes, this idea that AI is going to become, kind of general and super intelligence based on how willing you are to allow it to surveil you effectively and to incorporate as much content about you as you're willing to put in. And that kind of fuels the output. And so I do think to some extent the fact that we have an incredibly limited regulatory framework in the US with respect to AI, and certainly Europe has a different set of regulation, will affect outcomes. The question is just whether or not that will be positive, in which direction. It's not clear to me, right? There's just as much risk in not having that framework as there might be to it being a limiting element.
Yeah, agreed.
So to be determined.
Yes.
As with so many things
Yeah.
in this space.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So true. So true. Okay. So you talked about it before, as, one of the things that was possible, now that wasn't there 2 years ago. Agentic commerce, right? One of the buzzwords we're hearing all the time, pre-Can and during Can. I don't know how many times we've heard it in the days we've been here. Let's separate signal from noise. How do you define it? And we'll start with you, Emilie.
How do I define agentic commerce?
Yeah.
Really providing a different perspective to consumers and being that voice that's going to guide, the consumers through their kind of purchase journey, right? And blurring, again, the channel dynamics that we've seen historically. So I think it's going to be a major driver, not only for how it's informing, but also buying and making the purchasing act on behalf of consumers. So it's a profound shift in how we've seen this ecosystem evolve. And I think it's important to be for, manufacturers and be on top of it and understand the implications of that.
Yeah. I think we've talked about it internally a bit as inclusive of both the agent helping you to discover and make recommendations to you, and also the agent buying on your behalf. And I think sometimes we almost need to get really intentional about the definition.
Yeah.
Because when you have a conversation with customers, they oftentimes are talking just about the world where the agent is doing the buying autonomously.
Yeah.
And not where the agent is also stopping at maybe the point of recommendation, and then the human is still making the purchase decision.
Yeah.
We, at least today, are including both in the conversation when we talk about agentic commerce. And so there's a big question in the industry on how quickly we will actually get to the more autonomous buying by the agent versus the pretty, there's a very active set of use cases already around discovery and recommendations. That's already here, right?
Yeah.
And so optimizing that piece first, very important, but we need to have an eye certainly to the world where agents actually do the execution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you say the simplest way would be for brands and retailers to, I guess, understand what's happening?
Oof. Well, I think listening to this podcast first and foremost, right? There you go.
Lady right there.
Yeah.
But
We'll pay you later.
exactly right. No, but I have found, we had we've had a couple of big conferences over the last month. Emilie's team does a big Italian conference called L'Incontro. My team does a big conference called Consumer 360. Obviously, we're here at Cannes. We have CGF later this week.
Later this week.
And a big part of what I think, glean from these types of events is just the importance of conversation with one another.
Yeah.
And the experimentation is happening, and the more you learn about how others are experimenting, what's working, what's not, it gives you a real sense for how you might be able to learn from them, and also contribute back, your own learning. So I just think the community right now around the industry conversation is very important.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's important.
Yeah.
We love community. We love building community. So if AI agents do begin making those purchase decisions on our behalf, what happens to traditional marketing?
We talk a lot about context when you talk about AI being how the agent understands consumer needs. And I do still think that marketing influences that context and those needs in a big way. And so I don't think that's going to change. The role of an ad may evolve.
Yeah.
At the moment of purchase or within the context of something like, agentic commerce. But influence is still here. It's here to stay. We are a country and a world really like based on this concept of influence, and it's only growing more important. So to me, it's about influencing the context that the agents actually understand and learn from.
I actually think for marketeers, the big question is going to be, what is your brand standing for? I would actually encourage them to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
The environment is moving fast. There are new enablers. AI will be one. And actually being true to your brands, the values, the benefits you want to convey to the consumer, that authenticity that actually consumers are looking for is really what you're going to have to focus on. So in a way, strangely, with all the noise, all the drama, everything going on, I think a key message from my perspective would be go back to the basics of your brands. What do you want your brand to stand for in the marketplace, and how do you connect to the consumer? The consumer is the boss.
That's a really good
That's not
point.
changing.
And I also think once you do that, it's the consistency of that messaging.
Absolutely.
That
Execution
is what
then.
gets picked up by the, agentic algorithm.
Absolutely. And that consistency exactly in the messaging, right? But you need to start from
Credibility.
the values of your brand and what you want to achieve. And yes, the AI and will be the environment is moving. You've got to change, but you need to ensure that consistency in your execution.
That's a really good point. We did this Gen Z research a year or so ago that effectively said this. I mean, exactly what Emilie just said, that consumers, especially younger consumers, are looking for authentic brands and experiences, and it has to be consistent. And you need to be wherever they're looking for you.
Exactly.
Right. And so, very, very well said.
Build that credibility.
Well said.
And being a big brand or $1 billion brand, that does not equate to authenticity.
No.
In fact, it actually can take away from it.
That's right. That's
agreed.
So what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
And I love what you said. I also think there's a role for brands after the fact, less on acquisition and more focused on retention. So if the agent buys you, how do you then keep them with
Great
that
point.
brand?
Great
Nourish that relationship.
Yes,
really good point.
Totally. Yep.
So do brands, do you think, start marketing to agents and algorithms versus just people?
To me, it goes back to the data,
Agreed.
I think. So brands getting their product pages to be reflective of the terms and the context, and in our world, what we would kind of think of as attributes, right, of the product themselves are critical because that is how the agents are learning. Right. That's how they're able to identify that when someone queries or prompts them, they understand that context. And so going back to the data fundamentals here, getting your attributes and your product pages, really in order and understanding the conversation that's being had about your brand.
Yeah.
Because we've all heard that Reddit, for example, is a massive
Yes.
input to a number of the algorithms today. So very important from a what's on the pack, like making sure that those attributes are clear, but then also sentiment.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those attributes are
Yeah.
clear.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
And what industries do you think will feel the impact of this, of agentic, sort of sooner rather than later?
It's a great question. What comes to mind initially for me, and I'd be interested to hear what you think, Emily, as well, but are those things that have a functional benefit, for example,
Yeah.
where consumers are looking for something quite specific
Yeah.
that helps them with an actual problem or a need?
Mm-hmm.
I think agents are really well suited to helping filter very efficiently. But again, it goes back to if the product content helps them with that filter.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
If the things that are actually clean label products show up as clean label products, or the agent understands what clean label means to that
Stands for
consumer.
FAQs
Right?
that are answering
Exactly.
those questions.
So to me, like that is a really obvious one. Just those things that have sort of an immediate functional
Agreed.
need and are harder for consumers to find today.
CPGs and-
Yeah.
But even tech and durables, I
That's
think
right.
it's going to be across all industries, right? I
Mhm,
don't
sure.
think it's going to be unique. CPG probably the fastest, right? And to Liz's point, like ingredients and product addressing specific needs. But I think overall, it's going to touch every aspect of our ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
All right, let's talk a little East meets West. One of the most fascinating pieces of NIQ research recently was your commerce revolution, East meets West work. For years, obviously, Western companies have been viewed as innovation leaders, but we also increasingly see a lot of innovation emerging from Asia. What should brands be paying attention to from that body of work?
Yeah, I think the East has built a model that was fully like end-to-end online, right? So you have the commerce, the influence. I mean, 55% of global e-commerce is actually happening in Asia. And they go from, content creation, influence to checkout with super apps like Weixin or WeChat. And they've started that journey like 10, 15 years ago. In the West, it's been a more traditional model by channels and with, specific focus on retail media. So I think the fact that those two worlds are colliding brings a ton of opportunities. And I think technology and AI in particular is going to accelerate that connectivity. And so with the consumer at the center, I think what's going to be very true in the years to come, it's all about understanding the consumers and the brand positioning. And that's very similar between the East and the West. It's just that technology and entire online and digital ecosystem is more advanced, I think, in Asia than it is in certainly in Europe.
You have more points of integration.
Yes.
That are simpler.
Exactly.
In a lot of ways.
Frictionless.
It is frictionless. And so that idea, as Emily said, of the super app, the app that does everything from, getting you a ride to being able to order something for you to being your payment system and banking system, I mean, all the way really end to end, simplifies that commerce in a lot of ways.
And think about all the data that they have to work off.
I was going to say, and I'm sure that those that those companies would say, well, not so simple, quite complex actually. But the reality for the consumer, it really simplifies that that experience.
I mean, take away that friction, right? Of
Exactly.
multiple clicks. I mean, that is a dream for any consumer out there.
I just want a connected calendar across all the different. And reading it out of all the emails that I have too.
That would be lovely.
I
think AI can help us with that.
Yes, it will accelerate that kind of convergence of models, I think, between East and West.
What would you say the next innovation is that hasn't crossed the oceans, but inevitably should or will?
Probably the end-to-end connectivity, those super apps like Weixin, and we start to see those. But I don't think we have pocket of work here and there, but not that entire, ecosystem.
You see it. You see it a bit with like Uber, right?
Exactly.
Is I think an example of an organization that is down the path.
Yeah.
The piece that I think is maybe yet to be fully realized, and you would think it might be easier in the West, but the reality is, I think in a lot of ways it's more difficult, is this idea of like really, really quick commerce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the deliveries within 10 minutes that you see in parts of the world like India have become really mainstream.
Yes.
That piece of the equation, I think, is we've yet to fully realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so true. So we should have a crystal ball.
I know.
What's your prediction?
Prediction.
When will this come in?
Oh, it's moving at pace.
It is.
I think in the next 4-5 years. I mean, the whole distribution ecosystem still requires heavy investments, right?
Okay.
But I think the intention to move and bring that ecosystem closely together, I think that's for the next 18 months. We're seeing already a lot of changes, but the quick commerce requires, a level of investments and that, in logistics, that's going to take a bit longer.
Yep.
Okay. You heard it here,
Yep.
folks. 2030.
2030. Yeah, for sure.
Emilie and Liz have said
They'll be
that's
back.
when
We're gonna fact check.
entire
We're gonna
connected
pull the
commerce-
receipts.
I love it.
Check. All right. Well, we're gonna shift into retail media. Obviously, that's gone from buzzword to like billion-dollar industry, and we're hearing a lot about like retail media 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So what's next? What do you think is most exciting in that space?
Oh goodness, there's a ton. And I mean, we've seen even since we've been here at Cannes some big announcements from, Walmart Connect, for example, and Sam's rebranded as Sam's Connect, and they're bringing that together with the Walmart retail media network, some acquisitions that they've made, and Vive and CGV, et cetera. So there's, I think everyone is looking to continue to find the role that retail media can continue to play in the organization. It obviously for retailers drives an incredible amount of profit, or has the potential to. We've seen, I think, different technology players, so the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Googles, decide to take different approaches to how they will serve advertising or not within their platforms. And for OpenAI, it's pretty new. Ads are a couple of months old. For Google, obviously, it's been a mainstay of their business for as long as it's been around.
Yeah.
And so I think, as we think about retail media and we think about agentic commerce, the different models there and how those continue to evolve will be super, super interesting to watch. And there is some experimentation going on. There are some pretty big businesses that, will likely transition. But I'm personally very interested in that piece. And then what is the intersection with the retailer?
Exactly.
And the retailer's own platforms and properties through the agent experience.
And what's interesting in that ecosystem is, again, the importance of data. And so here at Cannes, we announced a partnership with in Europe and globally with Unlimited and Oguri. And it's really bringing technology, but data also at the center of that ecosystem to make sure that, retailers, manufacturers make informed decisions. And so, being part of that, again, I think is very, very important, a big differentiator.
One of the things that people talk about a lot in retail media is measurement. It is such a conversation.
Yes.
A black hawk.
I did. Yeah. How do you see that evolving? Because right now, what you measure here with this retailer, you can't translate. And it's so frustrating.
This is what I think is actually quite interesting about the differences in the European environment with retail media and the American, for example. Because the US retail environment adopted retail media before it was as big in Europe, you have a lot of individual retailers operating on their own ecosystems. And really measuring, having different approaches to measurement and ROI. And that's starting to coalesce into a bit more of an industry standard. There, are lots of industry associations and certainly companies like ours that are working to make sure that we can help provide more visibility to that measurement that brands in particular feel like they understand the value of the investment.
Yeah.
But I think the Unlimited example in Europe is a really interesting one. And maybe you talk a bit about how we're doing measurement.
Of course, it's like 20, covering. So it's a partnership. Unlimited is a joint venture between Publicis and Carrefour. And so we just announced this week an exclusive partnership with them to really serve the entire ecosystem and working across all retailers. So I think there is still an opportunity in Europe to actually have really an industry view of measurements, and how do you make sure that retail media is really captured and measured holistically. So that's the ambition. That's why we're launching, and we're super excited about that engagement.
It's a consortium.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So that's,
I know. As I said,
we're super excited.
I
think it's a very defining moment, and a big opportunity in Europe for the retail media space.
We have to get to our favorite part, even though we geek out. The she and she commerce and your leadership journey is what's really important to us. So let's switch gears a little bit. You both lead enormous organizations, different regions, cultures, all that. What's one leadership lesson from each of you that has become more important as you've advanced in your career?
Clarity and transparency. I think in a world where there is a lot of noise, conflicting priorities, a lot of questions we need to answer, the best service we can do to our teams to enable them is to be very clear and transparent, whether it's at a strategic level on the growth bets we're going to pursue, but also in the day-to-day conversations, providing feedback, ongoing feedback to help their own development. So for me, it would be clarity, transparency, and authenticity. I think you need to lead people with candor, with warmth. I really believe in an inclusive leadership style. I'm a strong advocate for female leadership development. So in West Europe, we've launched 3 years ago Women Leadership Program, where we're investing in their own, development, career perspective, and journey, and that matters to me greatly. So I would say those two words.
I love it. It's pretty cool at NIQ that the two largest regions are led by women.
Yes,
we're so very proud of that.
We were so excited that both of you are presidents of large markets, large regions. Like, oh my God,
we're very proud of that,
and I think proud of that.
It's intentional.
It is. It does speak as well to the investment that our company makes, to Emilie's point, in continuing to support all of our leaders, but certainly with a focus on making sure that women have opportunities. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's I guess just to echo some of Emilie's comments on leadership lessons. For me, the thing, especially as I've come into this role the last couple of years, has just been a pretty relentless focus on how I spend my time.
Yes.
And I really have underappreciated that at parts of my career prior.
Yeah.
And especially when you grow up in an organization, which I have, we both have.
We both have, yeah.
I have been here almost 20 years, and Emilie the same.
Mm-hmm.
It can be really easy to get pulled into things because you have expertise, you have knowledge, you have history.
Yeah.
Right. But what you end up doing is a disservice to yourself and to your team, in not kind of creating the right framework for how people need to lead, how decisions need to get made, where everyone should be leaning in. And it takes a very intentional approach to make sure you get it right.
Yeah.
So that has been a focus for me, certainly.
I agree. Empowerment is key.
That's right.
And you focus then on the strategic questions, and you're here, you shape and guide, and by giving them some autonomy and ownership. They also need to learn from their own, experiences, good or bad.
That's right. That's right.
We're here, we'll back them up, but they need to own it.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I think it's so true, because the better you get at your job, the more people want your voice in the room, right? And if you've been there 20 years, you've been in all these different roles, you know all the people, you know the history, you're an asset.
I was talking to another woman, CEO, president of a retailer, and she similarly had been in the company for a couple of decades and had said one of the most challenging things in transitioning to that role was having to create different boundaries with people.
Yeah.
Because it is so easy to continue to operate under sort of the legacy relationship model that you've always had. And it's not to say that those relationships aren't critical or that you don't still need to find ways to foster them, but you do have to think about how you operate.
Time management.
And there's only so much time.
Yep.
Exactly. And it's just pivoting that, okay, we had a different dynamic before and now this is different.
That's right.
But women are conditioned to be helpful. Right?
Yep.
And always, and we need to still be helpful, but in a far more structured, intentional, and also self-preservational way.
Absolutely. But I think it's important to communicate and be clear with the teams in terms of expectations and the changes required because of the role and the fact that you're not going to be available to everyone all the time. It's not possible. So having those clear boundaries and being able to manage your time effectively, I think is critical. But once you communicate and manage expectations, it's easier.
Agree.
Liz, what do you think women leaders bring to the organization that is really underappreciated?
One of the things I've been thinking about a lot as we talk about this AI evolution is the amount of emphasis that continues to be placed on creativity and empathy and a lot of those more sort of, human skills that really can't be replicated by quote unquote the machine.
Yeah.
And I think women in a lot of ways over-index on some of those naturally.
Yeah.
And so I think it really positions us well to continue to leverage these powerful capabilities, but also bring that creativity and that empathy and that context to being able to leverage
I love
them.
this. I mean, let's not forget half of the consumers in the world are women.
That's right.
So we need to make sure we use
And when we survey consumers, I mean, more than 70% still say that it's females that are making the buying decisions.
Exactly.
Right? And so,
82%.
there's a huge influence that women have on the ecosystem. And I think, anyway, some of those things that are going to continue to be critical human qualities in this AI-enabled world, we have perhaps a little advantage on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.
Agreed.
Love that.
That's right.
All righty. Now, we have two incredible leaders with us. So we're going to play a quick game.
Okay.
One-word answers only, please.
Oh, goodness.
I'm going to get started. Liz, most overused AI buzzword.
Metering.
Well, I haven't even. What is? I haven't heard that.
Metering. Oh.
Can you define that really quick?
You said one word. There's this whole conversation right now about tokens and metering and essentially paying kind of by the drink, so to speak, by usage. And it's getting really confusing really quickly. And so I think that was the first word that came to mind. Maybe because we've been talking so much about like the commercial models behind
Internally.
that my brain is just stuck in this space. But yeah, that's one that I would like for us to move on from a bit.
Most underrated leadership skill.
Empathy.
Oh.
And Liz explained previously beautifully how and why it's going to be so important.
Oh, that's gorgeous. One innovation that will define the next 5 years.
I don't have a one-word answer for this, but it's going to be, I think we will need something in the energy ecosystem that allows us to continue to power all of this AI in a more efficient way.
Ooh.
Data centers and the way that they're
convergence
already affecting the world in a pretty significant way.
Yeah,
There'll be something there.
Okay. Fun question. Coffee, champagne, rosé, espresso martini at Cannes.
Champagne, 100%. I have to say I'm pretty French.
You do.
A given.
For me, rosé. For me, rosé. Well done.
One thing that women need to stop apologizing for.
Almost everything. I think they need
to stop saying sorry.
Yes, exactly. Starting there and owning it and being proud of their journey and their intelligence and capabilities, I think they should actually continue to have a strong voice at the table.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well said.
Fine, go.
And finally, from both of you, your go-to hype song before you go on stage or before a panel. Recently, private joke,
Silly joke.
silly joke. A little less conversation.
That's a good one.
Conversation.
Very helpful.
I have this Santa Gold song that I always walk onto stage, and it's just because of the beat.
Okay.
It's an incredible, it just gets me pumped up to actually walk out. So I
Sing a little.
Yeah, I don't know that one. I don't know that one.
singing, no
She has a
singing.
great voice.
We did at a leadership offsite recently.
Karaoke?
Pulled into a live band karaoke. Yeah.
Oh,
Can I
get a clip.
ask you please to sing?
Oh.
And she won't because
Another.
she thinks she's Beyonce. Honestly.
I mean,
Oh, she has a vibe.
I will just tell you, this woman brought out La Vie en Rose, and the most perfect, just everything about it was perfect. And I think we all just stood there
No, Liz is being very humble. She has an amazing voice.
you're very,
So-
very.
We need a clip.
Sometime
okay?
we will
Yes,
do. Sometime we'll do
we will-
She
we
Commerce
will do-
karaoke together.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Stop
Let's do it.
Attitude girl.
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah. All right.
Done.
Good. Very good. Very good.
You heard it here first, guys.
We have
Super.
witnesses.
We're in.
I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to ask. We're kind of closing up now, but the one thing to both of you that every future female leader listening should remember as they navigate their own journey. What do they need to remember?
You want to go first?
I can go first. I would say that it is okay to make mistakes. Yes. It is okay to not know, to make mistakes, to fail, to start over.
I fully agree. I would say don't overthink things. When the opportunities come your way, just grab them with both hands.
Yeah.
Women have a tendency to overthink, and they should go with it and they will figure it out because we always figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
have that self-confidence.
Smart
love that.
ladies. Smart ladies.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of at the end, and it's really sad.
Yeah. Why did we put 2 hours?
I know.
Or day?
It's a busy week.
We've enjoyed it a lot.
Great,
Yeah, we've enjoyed it a
Well,
lot.
with every episode, if you've listened, we ask our guests to take a pledge to pay it forward and to continue to build and amplify the voices of women in the industry and help support those women that are coming up through the ranks as well, the future women leaders. So will you join our sisterhood and take that pledge with us?
Certainly.
100%.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thank you guys for what you do as well.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
of course.
inspirational.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much.
This conversation is why we love being at Cannes. It's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
We've absolutely loved this so much. The future of commerce, folks, is being written right now, and these are the ladies leading the charge.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Thanks a
much.
lot for having us.
And the
Thank
only
you.
thing, it has been a pleasure having you both on the podcast. And the only thing left for me to say now is bold brands, fierce women, one sisterhood.